Okay, well, it's a couple minutes after, and I really want to be respectful of everyone's time. So I think that we should get started. Um, so welcome everyone. And today we're going to be presenting on writing for the AppSac Advisor. We're calling this Writing for the AppSac Advisor 101. And what we're really going to focus on is we're going to talk about writing commentary, program descriptions, and preliminary findings. So we want to go through today, and we're going to give you a broad overview of the advisor, and we're going to just briefly mention our editorial vision. Then we're really going to pitch why should you publish in the advisor, and talk a little bit about what we're looking for in commentary, program descriptions, preliminary findings. Then we're going to talk about two things that are coming up. The first is the 35th anniversary special issue of the advisor. And we're offering a spring writing group, which will start in January, and we'll have some information there. And then we have time for questions. And our hope is that really we're going to get a chance to talk through everything in about 35-ish minutes, and then we'll take questions, and they can be as specific as you want. So if you want to pitch an idea to us, you're welcome to, and we'll close with providing our contact information so that you can follow up on any questions that you don't get answered today. And as you are aware, we are recording, and this will be available for people at a later date who are unable to attend. So do remember that during questions that if you don't want to ask something as we're recording, we will turn it off, the recording off at the end, and I can hang out for a few more minutes if you have questions, or you're also always welcome to contact us later. So speaking of contacting us, you should know who we are. So I'd like to begin by introducing myself. I'm Lisa Shelby. I'm the editor-in-chief of the AppSac Advisor and actually the AppSac Alert, but we're really focusing on the advisor today. Carlo, how about you introduce yourself, then hand it off to Bree?
Sure. I'm Carlo Panalilio. I'm an assistant professor over at Penn State, and also a faculty member with the Child Maltreatment Solutions Network, and serving in my capacity as associate editor for both the Alert and the Advisor as well. Bree?
Hi, everyone. I'm Bree Stormer. I am Director of Publications and Member Services with AppSac, publications including the Advisor and the Alert, along with the other publications that AppSac produces, such as child maltreatment, guidelines for practice, etc.
So if you are at all involved with AppSac, you've had a chance to meet Bree, probably, and if you publish, she will be your point of contact with everything related to the whole actual production process. But she's also a wealth of knowledge and plays heavily in our editorial team. So let's talk about the AppSac Advisor. So real quickly, it's an interdisciplinary journal. So we have people from all of the professions that work in the field of abuse and neglect. Who does that include? So it's law, it's social work, it's psychiatry, it's pediatrics, it's early education, it's nursing. Who am I not able to include as connected to child maltreatment? You've seen maybe recently that we've had articles about animal protection. So the intersection with the abuse of animals and child maltreatment. So in that regards, animal control can be connected. So we're very broad in how we see the disciplines that are relevant in addressing abuse and neglect. And the whole goal of this article is to provide succinct, practice-oriented articles that keep us as professionals informed of the latest developments in policy and practice in the field. So we have empirical articles, and we have commentary and descriptions of programs. But when we're even talking about empirical articles, these are not the methods-heavy articles. So that doesn't mean that they're not incredibly rigorous, but we instruct our authors to really focus on the implications, and you can summarize your methods in a couple of paragraphs. I don't want an article that's, 2/3 of it's explaining how it's randomized, all the randomization worked in this randomized control trial. We are interested in making sure that our AppSec members have access to the innovation that we are seeing in research and practice. It's published quarterly, although full disclosure, COVID's been hard. I'm blaming COVID, although I feel like it's just also hard to sometimes publish and get enough of manuscripts that are all together at the same time. So it's a timeline issue. So we're missing our fourth quarter this year, but it typically comes out 4 times a year. And occasionally we have special issues. We have one upcoming on race equity, specifically African-American children and families' experiences in the system and the child welfare system and with child maltreatment. So that's my spiel about the AppSec advisor. Carla, what did I leave out? I feel like I probably skipped some things.
No, I think you covered a whole lot of them. The other piece that we are trying to also accomplish that would be a recurring commentary is to really highlight, given the push for diversity, equity, and inclusion broadly, what we want to do is make sure that we keep the momentum going and that this isn't just a sort of a zeitgeist. And so one of the commentaries that we are publishing with each quarter is how do we have a discussion and dialogue with our membership in AppSec about addressing some of these systematic biases. And so that way we can begin to not just point them out, but also begin to have articles or commentaries that would offer solutions as well.
Since that's the really one of the foundations of our editorial vision, how about you talk through the editorial vision, Carlo?
Sure. So for part of this vision of ours, Lisa and I wanted to really see this interdisciplinary piece come to fruition. One of the things that we've brought in especially is the perspective of early childhood education as a partner in being able to address ways that we can begin to understand and also help with providing some solutions to prevent maltreatment. And so what we want to do is be able to have these not just jargon-free articles, but really a way to be able to speak to, if you have a multidisciplinary team, for example, to be able to really speak with each other and also to be able to, as authors, speak to those in practice, right? And one of our goals is to really bring this down from the ivory tower and bring this into, the accessibility of those in practice. And so the translational piece is something that we really want to highlight. The other thing, as I already mentioned with the commentary and hopefully a common thread across all of our articles, is to really promote this notion of racial equity and justice. And so that it's not just a buzzword, it's not just something that everyone is doing for the sake of doing because it's the cool new thing. We really want to make sure that with everyone's attention focused on this now, perhaps this is a time at which we can actually help move the field toward really bringing this into focus. And in the spirit of equity, and so when we talk about racial equity and justice, we also want to be able to bring in a more equitable playing field for some of our new voices and different perspectives. So those who are traditionally not included in publications or writing, and one of the reasons why we are offering these more outreach efforts to really connect with all of our AppSec members is to welcome some of the new perspectives. And so even though we're talking about empirical articles, we want to make sure that we do have, perhaps authors who are bringing in practice-based evidence that have worked and a way to then maybe disseminate some of this to a broader audience and be able to have these new voices heard.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa.
So why choose the AppSec advisor? So we don't have an impact factor. We're behind for lack of a better term, paywall. It's not a free downloadable articles. Why should you publish? Well, the main reasons are is that we are a community of practitioners, policymakers, and researchers. And we know that the information from the time that someone has a research study and has an empirical finding, and the study findings are actualized, or basically the bench to trench, they sometimes call it gown to town. We know that time is about 17 years, and we can cut that down because we have direct connections with practitioners. We are writing in a way we are publishing articles in a way that directly spell out the implications. We pride ourselves in our quick turnaround time. So with a lot of peer-reviewed journal articles, you can submit and you're not hearing anything for 90 days. We seek our initial feedback within a month, and we work with the revise and resubmits and really encourage tight turnaround times. The other thing, though, is that we consider ourselves having a very supportive review process. So the feedback that we are asking for our reviewers to provide is to be supportive and encouraging and identify solutions to any problems that may be found. So, for example, if a reviewer says, I have a concern that you didn't explain the significance of this issue well enough, we ask the reviewers to possibly share some insights about what specifically they would recommend be done differently. So we think that the reviewers we train reviewers to be incredibly supportive and helpful, but then our team, Carlo and I, work very closely to make sure that you have, as authors, have the information that you need, and we can go and have a conference call or be available by email to help answer any questions. We also are really welcoming new authors. So you may have seen in the chat, someone had a question like, hey, I have an article, is it too late? You know, we're going to try to work with authors when we can. And so, yes, we do have firm deadlines about when things go out to production, but if we can be flexible, I pass that flexibility on to you. And we really want to make sure that we reduce as many barriers to publishing as possible. And finally, we go beyond empirical articles. And that's possibly something that we do that is unique, that we are interested in manuscripts that may not be easy to get published. So the reason that they're not always easy to get published is they may, I'd argue improperly, be seen as less rigorous or meaningful, and yet nothing could be further from the truth. So these are some articles that we're really interested in. So first and foremost, we're interested in commentary. So what these are is that these are articles, these are thought pieces presenting the author or authors insights. So it may be on something about, we had one recently about how a transition of a new agency lead should be considered. A commentary could be something about what we should think about with linking, another one that was recent is linking animal abuse and then child abuse. I already mentioned that. The commentary that Carlo talked about, that we have a regular column, is about racial inequity and how we need to address this in the field. And the commentary is not empirically supported, although many times people do include some research to support their argument, but really these are conceptual thought pieces. You can almost think of them as editorials. So that's one type of article that we know really resonates with our audiences. And we know that people are really also quite excited about program descriptions. So with program descriptions, what we're looking for is someone to say, this is what we're doing. And here's the thing, I would be happier than could be if you talk about, here's what we're doing, and you're honest, being like, yeah, we learned from this mistake, tried this, it didn't work. That's awesome, because if you can share some of the reasons you're doing things about what hasn't worked or directions you're going in the future based on what you're learning, these are things that we love, because what it's doing is it's across the US, it's helping us work smarter, not harder, right? So we're able to benefit from the knowledge that someone is having in their own practice or program. And I want you to think really creatively about what this could be. So it could be focused only on recruitment. It could be focused only on retention. It could be, and we could be thinking about recruitment or retention of personnel or of children and families that we serve. You could be looking at a program description of bringing community partners together. What does it mean to have a research policy practice partnership? And how did you navigate all of those, breaking down the silos? So we're really excited about the program descriptions. And then finally, the preliminary findings. So a lot of times scholars are working on projects that collect data like over years or many months. And maybe it's a mixed method study and there's a couple of focus groups from the beginning that inform the development of an intervention, and then the intervention is going to go on for 18 months. We'd be incredibly excited for those preliminary findings about some of your early focus groups. We'd be also really excited if you're collecting multiple waves of data and you want to look at the first two that you have some things, or if it's just something that it's your pilot data that you're using as to get a grant, but you want to get a chance to get peer feedback and publish some of your pilot data. These are things that when we only wait till the very end, when all the big studies are done and then we publish them in journals with high impact factors behind paywalls, practitioners are never going to see. So we love the idea of these being projects that are, of course, rigorous, but are not necessarily signed, sealed, and delivered. We want there to be room for there to be a discussion. So Carlo, I talked through all three. I probably should have had you comment on them as I was going, but what other things would you like to talk to folks about with these areas and manuscripts to submit?
Yeah, and I think just to add, I think that those are awesome descriptions of these manuscripts, but I think one of the things that I do want to highlight, especially with program descriptions and these preliminary findings, is that, as you mentioned, by the time they are signed, sealed, and delivered at the end of the project, we sometimes don't see the challenges and the struggles that researchers have undergone with some of these projects. And I think by having these descriptions and preliminary findings, I think it's more in line with what we would see in implementation science, which is this iterative process of program development. And for a lot of folks actually working boots on the ground, that is what our practitioners will be seeing is, it's never going to be delivered with fidelity if these are all done in laboratory settings. And so being able to speak to some of the real world context, I think, is one of the largest contributions that you as authors will be able to provide in these descriptions and preliminary findings, especially if you've used those findings to inform a modification in those specific programs. I think those are the elements that are oftentimes behind the curtain that people don't see. And as you all know, nothing always comes out perfect. But if we're only publishing perfect outcomes, it's a very unrealistic expectation to set.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So if you are interested in submitting, we have the guidelines that are available online, and the link is there. We request articles be 4,000 to 6,000 words, but that is not firm at all. And especially with some of these brief commentaries, they may be about 2,000 or 3,000, and that's great. And for a more complicated program evaluation that's further along, or is really needing to look at some things that are nuanced, and it's like 7 or 8, that's okay. we're flexible. It's all online, so there's some flexibility. We suggest the 4 to 6 because that really is the cutoff where you start losing some readers, and we want to make sure that everyone really reads what you have written. So we do use 7th edition APA formatting, and if you're a practitioner and you're like, I don't remember APA formatting at all, this is so overwhelming, I have resources that I can share with you. We also work with a copy editor, so we can help get your articles. So if that's the scary thing about this, don't be afraid. We got your back, and we can absolutely help you with the formatting. It's a lot easier than you think once you have access to all the resources. So we don't have many submission due dates for issues. We basically work on a rolling process. So we publish them when they come, we review them as they come in, and we put them out in our general issues as they are available. And so occasionally we have a special issue that there will be deadlines, but even that, we sometimes can be a little bit flexible with that. So the main thing is to reach out with questions, and you can email at info@apsac.org. And we'll also talk about how to reach us, Carlo and me directly. So one of the things that I'm really excited about is this special issue that we have been pulling together. So what the special issue is that it's the 35th anniversary of the APSAC Advisor, and we are looking for people who we consider new voices. So this is someone who has not published in the APSAC Advisor before, and they are going to interview one of the APSAC founders, or really one of the leaders, someone whose legacy in the fields of child maltreatment or child maltreatment prevention, child welfare are great. And they're going to interview them about their work as well as their hopes for the future. Then the person, the interviewer, the author, is going to write a commentary based on this interview. And I don't know why I included the word including, because it's also, I didn't finish the phrase, it's also including their reflection on this. So for example, maybe someone interviews David Finkelhor and about his seminal work on child sexual abuse and where he sees the work progressing. And then this person shares about what they're seeing in their communities around child sexual abuse prevention and the services that are available to those who have experienced child sexual abuse. And so the commentary is basically summarizes the interview as well as includes the new voice perspective. We are going to have a writing group, and that's going to be the next slide that we talk about, that supports this process. So we're going to do everything from like help coach about what interview questions could look like, some of the logistics about interviewing, and then be there for every step of the process. And I'll also be happy to read through drafts or set up one-on-one times to talk through how to take an interview and transition it into, you know, a 3,000 to 6,000 word commentary. The applications are going to be due on December 15th, and the applications could be super easy. So we're going to make the applications available very shortly. The applications are as simple as your name, email, contact information, where you are located, basically the information that we would need to reach you. And then if there's a specific interest that you have, for example, if you're interested in psychiatry or pediatrics or law enforcement or nursing, so that we can match people to do the interviews, then we will notify everyone on January 3rd. So Carlo and Bree, you've been part of this discussion. What did I leave out that's important to talk about with this special issue?
I think you captured it quite well. I don't have anything to add.
Okay. Okay, great. So we are going to host a writing group. Now, first and foremost, anyone is invited to the writing group. So the writing group is not just about the 35th anniversary, but we are going to spend some time focusing on that to really try to get some of the people who haven't written before. And these can be doc students, practitioners. So when we're saying new, we're not saying people have to be young, like all ages, all backgrounds. It doesn't matter if you've never written, if you're afraid of we're there for the process. And it is for any authors who are going to be writing for the advisor. You do not need to be an ABSAC member at all. So we have 4 dates, and they're Thursdays, January 20th, February 17th, March 3rd, and April 7th. And the reason that it looks like we changed where things fell in the month is we do expect that there will be some graduate and doctoral students, and we wanted to make sure we moved the March date to a date that didn't conflict with a spring break. So we took a quick poll of those in the academy and said March 3rd was before most spring breaks. So this is going to be a very supportive environment. And we are there to be part of the writing process, and it's absolutely free. And there's really the downside is you have to be vulnerable at some level and put yourself out there to join and write. But really, once you show up, we're going to talk you through the process and help write the articles that you're interested in. So at this point, I want to provide all of our contact information so that you have this. I will also dump this into the chat so that you're able to contact any of us. But we were able to get this. My goal is to get through this in 30 to 35 minutes. And we're just at 30 minutes. So why don't actually, before I stop and ask for questions, Carlo and Bree, are there things that I should have mentioned that we maybe I didn't?
I think you covered at least most of the agenda items that you and I had talked about. I think, Bree, if there's any you would add, that would be great. I think I would like to hear from folks to see if there are any specific questions.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sorry, Bree, go ahead.
Oh, no, nothing to add. We'll let folks ask questions, and then if there's any thing that I can respond to, I'll be happy to.
Great. So are there any, what questions do people have?
And thanks for the chat and the comment, Courtney. Hopefully that this is something that would be an opportunity that everyone partakes in. I think it would be awesome to be able to see some of you there, or all of you, if not all of you.
I'm a little interested. So if you have some, say, preliminary findings already published on your website for your organization, would that preclude being able to write an article and get published?
Not at all. Thank you so much. And that's a really key thing. So if it is published in your annual report, even on your website, and you want to fashion it into an article, we would love it. Here's the other thing. If you have published your findings in another journal, you are still welcome to write a practice-focused article on your findings. And we would welcome that. So we actually solicit when we see child maltreatment's table of contents and we look at the abstracts and skim the articles, we occasionally reach out to the authors and we pitch the idea for them to write a companion piece. So it's light on methods and much heavier on direct implications. And it's implications not just this, well, we need to do more. It's like, what does that more look like? Very concrete. So yes, and that is not a concern at all.
I'll just add really quick. One of my all-time favorite advisor articles, and there was a whole issue in 2018 on trauma-informed child welfare, and the recipients, the authors were all recipients of grants to implement statewide trauma-informed child welfare systems. And part of that grant was publishing. And so all of these authors went on to publish in journals with impact factors. What this advisor really focused on were some of the barriers to implementation. One of my favorites was about how leadership change and employee retention was a major barrier to implementing trauma-informed child welfare. And you don't see that when you're looking in the journal article with the results, that this was something that they were contending with. Others talked about the opioid crisis, others talked about the role of foster parents in implementing trauma-informed child welfare. And so even if it is a more robust study or part of a grant, there's a lot of opportunity to expand on some of those more practice-based issues that you don't always see in the really empirical articles.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I see in the chat there's a question about individual case studies. Yes, we are very interested in individual case studies. And here's the thing. I also publish Child and Adolescent Social Work Journal, and we have a very strict policy of no composite case studies. And I won't get into the details, but that was a decision that we made as the editorial team. But I would even be open to a composite case study that's for the teaching purposes to explain the method that is being used. But case studies broadly, absolutely, we would be interested in. And a composite case study that's for the purposes of explaining an intervention or program or fault in the system, absolutely. We need to make sure that it's very clear that this is created from a composite of cases, and I'd work with any authors who were interested in doing so. So I know some of you may be in positions where you supervise graduate students. And you may be either in this because you're an academic mentor and you have a doctoral student that's a research assistant, or you could be at an agency where you have a licensed professional counselor. I guess they're not licensed at that point, a counseling student, or someone who's getting their master's in education or their master's in social work. It is also something that you can work with students to, and you can assign students to write, and we will work with them throughout the process. So this is another thing that I often, to the idea of, it's like, well, we have this project that we have an annual report. Handing an annual report that has some great information and asking a student to craft an article, we can share some samples of what that could look like. And that could be a project that they work on under your supervision. And we provide the social scaffolding to get their new perspectives and the information out there.